Good morning. This is Angela with a cup of tea on Monday, August 8th, 2011. Over the weekend, I received an email that had a great quote in it, and it really struck my heart. It struck home for me. Not only because I talk to a lot of people about this particular topic, but also because it's something that I am working with consistently within myself. You know, I use quotes a lot to help people think about their personal journey or parts of their personal journey and how it might apply to them. But this one really, like I said, it really hit home. It was put out by a woman named Rasha who wrote a book called The Wisdom of Oneness. The quote is that you are never too busy or too committed to pause and reconsider when life presents you with the possibility of a radical turnabout in what you thought were your plans. Those plans were merely the detour you used to bring yourself to the moment where the real direction might be stumbled upon. It's huge. It's a huge topic, and I could talk about it for a long time, so I'm going to really be condensing things into 10 minutes. But it actually also ties a lot into a book I talk about quite a bit, The Alchemist by Paul Coelho, which is really the retelling of a fable, and it really strikes home because to back up a little bit, and this all encompasses so much of what we've talked about over the past several months. And, you know, what's funny is I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised that I didn't really notice that because it had struck so closely to me that this was actually going to be the topic for today. But it makes a lot of sense because it really does start tying a lot of things together. You know, I think I had talked about the Alchemist several months back. And we were talking about our personal legend. And I love the term personal legend because it really means we hit what is highest and best and what makes our heart and our soul just sing. And what happens a lot of times is that when we're kids or we're teens or young adults, we know or we uncover our personal legend and what, you know, our highest and best purpose of what we wanted to accomplish in this life, in this existence. So, you know, this is very tied into our very personal journeys and the paths up the mountain to enlightenment and that Earth 2.0 that we talk about so much. But a lot of times, again, we're taking out the empowerment. And what happens is we start with this personal legend and you have people tell you, you can't do that. You can't do that. Or you have people just peers and family just by association and by these constant daily things. You know, we've trained, like I've talked about so many times, we've trained ourselves over thousands of years on taking power outside of ourselves, on letting others decide for us. So when we have a parent who tells you you have to do this with your life and we believe them, or you have to do this to be successful, or this is what your definition of successful should be, then many times we believe that. And so what happens is then our personal legend becomes sort of covered up again. Because then the ego, the rational mind, takes over what the heart really wants to do or what the heart aspires to get to. Yet I don't believe that the heart ever forgets, and nor do I think, well, I know that our higher self never forgets and knows. So we always know what's going to make us happiest and our highest and best, truly. And what happens many times is our head and our heart fight each other. And many times the head in today's world overcome the heart because we have so many things that we want to accomplish and we put everything into a box and, you know, we want a job that makes us money and we want, you know, this kind of house, we want to live with this, you know, we want to marry this person, we want to have 2.5 kids and a white picket fence or something like that, or no, I want to become a superstar, I want to, well, the superstar thing, that I think is more of a personal legend, so I'm going to back up on that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times we put these things in these boxes. And in a way, that's putting blinders on. And it does tie back into like what I was talking about last week in terms of the labyrinth that we create and that we can choose to have a very complex labyrinth to, you know, figure out the journey on, to make the journey more complex on where we want to get to when we want to get to that personal legend, to that enlightenment, to the top of the mountain. And we can make it as complex or as simple with as much pain or as much grace and ease as we choose to do with it, to have with it. So what this quote really talks to me about is really that is so many times we are on this path and we decide we are going to be on this path and this is what it's going to be in 5 years, this is what it's going to be in 10 years. And it's not bad to have those kind of goals, but then you find this point where you're going along, and then you hit a wall. And that's where this radical turnabout idea sort of comes with this quote, because a radical turnabout can be anything from losing a job and not being able to find another one in the field that you thought you loved or wanted to be in all the time for your life. You or your significant other, your spouse, dies, is really sick, or you get divorced, or you break up, or one of you wants to go on to another path or go to a different place, or to follow your path, or you're going to have to go to a different place, so that means that your paths diverge. And that's radical, and there are just so many different things that can be a radical turnabout, but basically something that says, whoa, stop, you're going to have to turn around or go this completely different direction, and yeah, you're not quite sure how it's going to get there. So if you go back to The Alchemist and Paulo Coelho's, one of the best quotes from that book is, when you decide what it is that you are working towards, the universe conspires to help you get there. And it's true. But this also ties in so many of these complexities that we've been talking about on, yes, we can decide on our goal, or remember our goal for our best and our highest, for our personal legend, for what is going to make our heart and our soul sing, ultimately. And we have to let go of the reins in some sense, even though we manifested it. We have to trust that the universe is conspiring to help us get there. And many times we don't see it because our ego, our mind gets in the way, And I've talked to so many people, like a friend of mine who lost her husband, I think it was like 10 years ago now, and she was devastated because it was like they got, married later in life, sort of later, and had a child, and then he died, and she was devastated. But had he been, she looks at it now in retrospect and said, well, I loved him and I adored him, and it was great. But had he still been alive, I would have never left that where we lived. And she said, and I realize now that coming here was a big gift, and it was really a big push towards, like boosting her into, the life and where she wanted to be and what was going to make her happiest. But it was tough for her to get out of her head and understand that, well, maybe it was some agreement that they had, and that he was going to go at a certain time, and they were just going to enjoy that time together and enjoy every moment, and then it would be time for them to diverge their paths. So there's so many ways of looking at this, and what this quote calls up in me is, because I've gone through this a lot, and I'm continuing to go through this. This is something that has come up in my life several times in a big way in the past 5 years. When I decided to leave corporate America to start my own business in a completely different field, and then things turned about, I started another business, things turned about, and then I had this grand awakening. And if you would have asked me 10 years ago, or if you would have shown me a window 10 years ago that showed me doing what I was doing today, and even further out what I can see for myself in 5 to 10 years, I would have been like, you're crazy. This is the path we're taking. This is the path we're taking. So I did at least have enough sense to actually break that box by leaving corporate America, because I did realize that actually what my head was telling me and my heart was telling me were two different things. Now, even more so, I'm getting more and more into my heart, and part of my goal is working there. But I still have a lot of changing to do, and I know that there are going to be many things, there are going to be quite a few things along the way that are going to be radical turnabouts. And so now what's happened is I have adjusted enough so that I can let go of the reins and say, okay, I trust I trust that I'm going to get there, and I trust that the universe is going to conspire to help me get to my highest and best, and to get me happy, to my happiest, and to make my heart and my soul absolutely sing and just bust from being so ecstatic in joy. So it's taken a lot of work to get there, because I had to take all those blinders off and say, okay, I'm going to go down this path, and this is where I'm going to go, and you can tentatively set it, but you know what, we also have to accept that if something different comes, it's going to totally change our direction, that's okay too. I mean, how many movies have you watched where like somebody starts a normal day, right? It's like a totally normal day, and then something extraordinary happens. Well, that's happening to us more and more, and I really truly believe that as we're going along here in the very short term, this is all going to really, really start to ramp up and happen more and more for many of us. So your homework this week is to step back and look at your life and look at what really, not what your head is telling you is going to make you happy, but your heart. And say, okay, I'm working on this path, and am I banging my head? Am I like, button up against the dead end? And if I am, what are the other doors that are open that I'm not looking at? That's really what the key is. And which one can I go and just take the oars out of the water and go with the flow, and see where it takes me. So on that, I'm going to let you go. This is Angela with a cup of tea. Have a great day. See you Thursday.